Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Politicians are a tough old bunch, but with MPs now regularly reporting cases of serious abuse, has the normal rough and tumble of political life turned into something a bit more serious? Well, that's the subject of a debate to be held in the Commons later this week. And here's the Conservative MP Cheryl Murray asking about it at Prime Minister's Questions last Wednesday.
Over the past months, I've had swastikas carved into posters, social media posts like Burn the Witch and Stab the Sea, people putting Labour Party posters on my home, photographed them and pushed them through my letterbox, and someone even urinated on my office door. Hardly kinder, gentler politics. Can my right honourable friend suggest what can be done to stop this intimidation, which, Mr Speaker, may well be putting off good people from serving in this place?
Well, that was a Conservative MP, and at the weekend the Labour MP, Yvette Cooper, gave a speech about the vitriolic abuse being dished out to many of her colleagues online. We're joined now by the MP who's called this week's debate, he's Simon Hart, and by Tulip Siddique, who has said female MPs need training to deal with what are known as internet trolls. Welcome to both of you. We've heard a lot about this over the last few years. Simon Hart, you've got this debate on Wednesday about abuse faced by candidates in elections. How is this campaign any different from previous ones?
Well, since 2015, the period between 2015 and 2017, 2015 was a civilised election. You know, you shook hands afterwards, you had a passionate debate, and then you went to the pub. It has got a lot more personal, but the real purpose of this debate actually isn't to provide an opportunity for MPs just to whinge about how difficult their life is.
Well,
it's actually,
it may be genuine in
well,
that sense.
Possibly, but the more serious problem, I think, is actually it's people around elections, it's members of the public, people who want to support candidates, people who want to put a poster up in their window, people who want to make a donation, and they are getting trolled as well. They are getting abused, they're getting broken windows, and they are actually being driven away from politics at a time when we need them.
Who's doing it, though? I mean, you say it was civilised in 2015. What changed in 2 years? Well,
I don't want to make an obviously partisan point, which has been the emergence
of
momentum, but I've now made one. But there are other factors too. There's quite a lot of anti-Semitism about homophobia, sexism. It's not just the left versus the right. Although, in my experience, and I can only speak for myself, it has been typified by sort of people feeling they've been given permission by the silence from political leaders to engage in this with no possible repercussions.
Well, Tulip Siddique, do you agree with that? Has there been a sense that Momentum, whom Simon Hart mentioned, this grassroots organisation very much backed Jeremy Corbyn, feels it has a licence to be abusive to people who don't agree with their view of the world?
I think that's absolutely ridiculous, and I think it's a very easy way to cover up the fact that things are getting worse. Look, I've been abused since 2010 online. This is long before most people even knew who Jeremy Corbyn was, to be honest, and it was abuse directed at me, mostly because I was a female politician above anything else. In the last 2 years, or last 3 years, let's say, it has gotten worse, but it tends to get worse around major events. So around Brexit, it got worse. Around Donald Trump's election, it got worse. And during the election just 2 months ago now, it got worse. But there are people who are tweeting me saying things like, you can't be a mother and an MP, and then a string of swear words. I'm sorry, don't blame that on Momentum. Those are online internet trolls who need to be silenced.
Let's just show a picture of Yvette Cooper, your Labour colleague, because she was... someone tweeted about her being in a first-class carriage of a train. She was accused of being a class traitor. You're a busted flush, said the tweet. We're in control now. Who's that from, in your mind, and what are they trying to say?
Well, it could be from anyone, but if I give you an example of someone who tweeted me yesterday and said, go back to where you belong, bongo bongo land, they said. I mean, I've heard Hampstead being called lots of things, but bongo bongo land. But when I looked at the Twitter account, they basically said they had voted Conservatives. Now, do I blame Theresa May for that? Of course not. Of course I don't blame Theresa May for one tweet sent by someone who votes Conservative. Right. It's very easy to blame leaders for what people are doing in their name.
Right. I think and so aren't left-wingers getting it from the right as much as you may say the Conservatives have it from the left?
As I said earlier on, I don't think this is a
But you say it's got worse as a result in the last 2 years of Momentum and Jeremy Corbyn. Is that fair?
I'm making the observation. I think it has played a significant part, but it's not by any means exclusive. And actually where I disagree with Tulip about political leadership, it is this. Political leaders do have a unique platform to stand up and actually say, not in my name, not in my party's name. Anybody who does this in the name of me or my party has no place on the political stage. At the moment, we have heard a deafening silence, I have to say, on this topic. Well, and tomorrow is actually about, the debate this week is about rectifying that and actually trying to force political leaders to say, this will not be acceptable.
Well, I mean, Jeremy Corbyn tweeted in 2016, I completely condemn abuse of MPs of any kind. No abuse is carried out in my name. He said then a few months later on Question Time, there should be no abuse. There should be no online abuse. There should be no Twitter abuse. There shouldn't be abuse in political debate. I don't make personal attacks on anybody. That's not the way I conduct myself, and I want other people not to do the same, or to do the same.
Yvette Cooper clearly disagrees with him, because she's actually stipulated the left versus right campaign and how if Labour wished to be a credible a government in waiting, it needed to address this. Now, it's one thing saying it. Actually, what is Jeremy Corbyn doing about it?
Well, what is Jeremy Corbyn doing about it?
Well, as you say, he spoke up about Emma Barnett during the election very strongly. He personally tweeted when I was getting abused, saying it's unacceptable. We shouldn't be forcing women offline. You know, standing in solidarity with Tulip Siddiq. He wrote all of that. So I think a deafening silence is absolutely the wrong phrase to use. I think
is he doing enough, though, Tulip Siddiq? Because, I mean, yesterday Theresa May said she was surprised by Jeremy Corbyn's failure to condemn intimidation after a campaign which we heard Cheryl Murray talk about, saw online abuse and vandalism. There were examples of swastikas being drawn on Conservative posters. Should he do more?
Look, I think Jeremy Corbyn has done plenty. He's personally rang me after I've got the online abuse. I'm not sure how much more he can do, but what he is doing is over and over and saying, this is not acceptable. But I sort of feel we're missing the point by blaming leaders of political parties. The fact is, Twitter and Facebook have got to take responsibility. They want us to use these social media networks, but they don't want to take responsibility. I'll just give you one quick example. Facebook was very quick to get rid of a picture of a woman breastfeeding, yet when I reported a fake account that was set up in my name, sending out intimidating messages, 2 weeks later, I got a response. Yeah. What should they be doing? They should be acting faster.
And therefore, and we've had a lot of female MPs who have long had vitriolic abuse against them. So, you know, a misogynist strain in political debate on Twitter and social media in general. You can't blame a change in political leader or a change in political culture just that's happened over the last couple of years for what you see as a great change in increase, because people like Tulip have been enduring it for years.
And I'm absolutely not. And actually, one of the things we need to do is to measure the exact extent of this in the impact it's having on society and on elections.
But isn't it to do with the fact that we've got these 10 years ago, you didn't have these means where every little person in every little corner, every little freak, every little weirdo, as well as the general public, having the chance to actually grab the national debate and to do things against people like yourself. And we need to be thinking about this kind of freedom. What is it? It's a freedom to be used properly or improperly.
But there is some existing legislation. The problem is, if you want to take somebody to task through the legal system, it is extremely expensive and risky. So people are disinclined to that. But I do agree with Tulip about the social media platforms, because this extends way beyond the so-called bullying of MPs. This is about online bullying generally.
There will come a time when we will look back at this, because we'll have invented the means of controlling this horrible, horrible manifestation of ugliness.
The laws exist, as you say. It's just that they haven't been implemented as much.
That is one.
And you're calling for training.
Oh, absolutely, training, but also Twitter and Facebook need to take responsibility. What
I hope is if there is a need for a change in legislation, and there may be, that perhaps actually this is one point at which Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May can be in the same voting lobby.
Well, the cross-party consensus may come to the fore. Thank you both very much.